Hi everyone, it's Katie from Paradise Falls family. In this video, we'll be taking you through our recent trip to Brussels and Antwerp in October 2023. This was just a quick weekend trip to try and catch some of the Gymnastic World Championships, and we had a lovely break. It was our first time attempting a quick weekend break abroad with the kids, so I'll take you through how we navigated that, what we did, and then in the second half of the vlog we'll go through some of the more practical bits and what went into our planning. Our flight left Manchester Airport at 8:30 PM on the Friday, after the kids had finished school and us work. We flew with Ryanair and landed at Brussels Charleroi Airport at around 10:50 PM. There is an hour time difference and the flight only takes around an hour and a half, and all went really smoothly. Unfortunately, on landing we did have some problems. We'd pre-booked a transfer to our hotel with holiday extras. We wanted to be sure of a reasonably priced taxi at that time of night. However, it didn't show up, and after several phone calls we found out that the taxi company hadn't been paid, so we were left all on our own and having already paid out in advance for this transfer. Fortunately, there were still taxis around, although they all seemed a little bit sketchy if we're being honest, and wanted €250 in cash. We managed to negotiate to pay by card, but it was all really stressful, uncomfortable and not what we wanted on arrival late at night with two young children. Something to learn from next time. Holiday Extras did reimburse us for our costs, but we were less than impressed with the service we received and wouldn't use them again to book a transfer. We finally arrived in Brussels city centre around midnight at the Radisson Red. Check-in was really easy and our room, a junior suite, was lovely and a bit quirky. It was nice and big, clean and comfortable, and had a separate living area with a sofa bed. We were really comfortable for the couple of nights that we were here. The hotel is in the EU quarter, within walking distance of the EU buildings and a metro station to help get around the city. Our plan for the weekend was to spend the Saturday largely in Antwerp to see the gymnastics, perhaps with some time in the centre of Brussels if we felt like it, and then spend the Sunday exploring Brussels a little before our flight home. Given we'd arrived so late the night before, we all had a lie-in and let the kids sleep to recover from the night before. We'd intended to get the metro into the centre of Brussels and maybe see a little of the centre before heading out to Antwerp. However, with our lie-in, we didn't have a lot of time, so we had a quick breakfast in our room and then jumped in an Uber to the central train station. There are several trains an hour from Brussels to Antwerp, with the quicker train taking around 50 minutes and the slower train taking over an hour. We'd pre-booked an open return on Trainline for just £40 for all of us, which felt like really good value compared to the trains in the UK. We caught a train a bit after 10:30 and arrived in Antwerp just over an hour later. The train station in Antwerp is a beautiful sight itself, so make sure to take this in if you come through here. Our first stop was to get some lunch, and we found a restaurant just outside the station where we enjoyed some famous Belgian frites. This left us with a little time to have a wander around the immediate area, including the world famous Diamond District. You can see from the video there wasn't much to this, probably not worth going out of your way to see, especially on a weekend when it was dead. We didn't have quite enough time to make our way across to the main square and centre, but it looked like a lovely city, one we'd like to return to and explore properly one day. The gymnastics started at 2 PM at the Sports Palace Arena on the edge of the city. Our gymnastic tickets included free transportation within the city, so it was really easy to jump onto the metro to take us out there. The event was really well organised, with loads of directions to the arena and with volunteers along the way to help. The atmosphere at the venue was brilliant, with lots of stalls and bits and pieces for the kids to get involved in. There were loads of dining options which kept us going, and we had a great time enjoying the action with some of the world's best gymnasts, including Simone Biles, competing at the event. Tickets cost around €270 for the four of us, a fraction of the cost of the Olympics tickets in Paris next year, for basically the same event. Well worth the cost and a wonderful experience for us all.
Simone Biles.
Afterwards, we caught the metro back into the city. We thought about spending some time in Antwerp, but after our experience the night before, we decided to get back to Brussels sooner rather than later. We're fortunate enough that Antwerp is within driving distance of Calais, so I'm sure we'll be back one day to see a little more of this lovely city. We jumped on the train back and spent the evening in Brussels, wandering around the city a little, south of the station, around the Place du Grand Sablon, where there are loads of restaurants, cafes and shops. We found a little cafe to grab some food and then caught an Uber back to the hotel to relax after a really fun day. The next morning we were a little more refreshed and ready to make the most of our remaining time in Brussels before our flight home later in the evening. We were up early, packed and ready to go. We had a quick breakfast in the room, then began by wandering over to the European Parliament nearby to have a look around. Not terribly exciting, but we thought we should see it while we were here. Next up was the Royal Palace, around a 15-minute walk away, a little more impressive and a nice area to wander the old streets. Our last stop on the outskirts of the city was Parc du Cinquantenaire. We caught an Uber out here rather than using the metro to save time, and spent a little bit of time wandering around the park, which was lovely and peaceful. There are several museums here, as well as the impressive Monument du Cinquantenaire, and the Military Museum was doing some sort of reenactment, which was fun to watch even if we had no clue what was going on. Our last stop for the day was then the very centre of the city, so we could explore the old streets and some of the main sites. We grabbed some lunch at Wagamama's, one of the kids' favourites, so really easy while we're on the go. And then we wandered the streets, taking in the Grand Place, some of the famous murals, and stopping by the famous Galerie Saint-Hubert, which is full of chocolate shops and where we couldn't resist buying ourselves some treats. We also made sure to stop by the Jeanneke Pis and Manneken Pis, the mascots of the city. Although we did find the Manneken Pis has numerous different outfits, one of which he was wearing the day we visited, so be prepared for it not to look anything at all like the souvenirs and pictures dotted around the city of it. The centre here was really beautiful and by far our favourite part of the city. Classic old Belgium streets and a lovely area to spend some time if you visit. To get us back out to the airport, we'd booked seats on the shuttle bus with Flibco for around €20 per person, much better value than getting our own taxi. These leave regularly from the train station, so we hopped on the metro to the central station and caught this bus out to the airport. The journey took around an hour. Our flight home wasn't until around 7 p.m, so we had time to get some food at the airport before flying back home. We'd parked in the short stay multi-storey at Manchester Airport, so it was really easy to hop off the plane, grab our luggage and head back home in time to get the kids to bed on time, ready for school the next day. So that was our whirlwind trip to Brussels and Antwerp. As I said, this was our first attempt at a weekend break abroad with the kids. We'd had a brilliant time, but we did learn a lot and we'd maybe do things a little differently next time. So now I'll talk through some of the more practical bits of the trip. Let's start with why Brussels. To be honest, Brussels was never somewhere we'd considered visiting with the kids, as it doesn't immediately stand out as a family destination. We'd originally planned on trying to visit Paris in summer 2024 to take in some of the Olympics and had attempted to get some tickets earlier in the year. However, our favourite sports were all either booked up or incredibly expensive. For example, 4 tickets to see some gymnastics, which is one of our favourites, was around £1,000. So we decided that the trip wouldn't be feasible and moved on to looking at other options. We decided instead to check out if any of our favourite sports had World Championships on or other events that we could take the kids to instead. And we found the World Gymnastics Championships were being held in Antwerp, so decided to take a further look. We found that we were able to get tickets really easily and could put together a trip for not much more than the cost of just 4 tickets alone to the Olympics. So it's well worth looking around for other options which are cheaper but still fun for the whole family to enjoy watching some sport. Having checked tickets were available, the next step was checking for flights. There aren't many direct flights from the UK to Antwerp and certainly not from the north of England, but we were able to find plenty of options for Brussels from Manchester for a reasonable price. It cost £433 for the 4 of us, including seat reservations and a check-in bag, although we probably could have managed with just hand luggage on reflection. The flights were probably the main thing we'd change next time. What we didn't take in or check when we booked was where exactly the airport was. We didn't book Brussels main airport and it was Charleroi Airport instead, about an hour south of the city. This is the airport that Ryanair uses. Landing late at night so far out of the city at such a small airport wasn't ideal and isn't something we'd repeat again with the kids. We later booked a private transfer to ensure that we could quickly and safely get to our hotel, but as I explained earlier, this just didn't show up. So we were left to get an expensive taxi really late at night. There are shuttle buses from the airport to the city, but at that time of night they'd almost all finished and they'd drop off at the train station in the centre of Brussels, which was nowhere near our hotel. So overall, on reflection, we would do this all very differently next time, selecting our flights a little more carefully. Next up was our hotel. We wanted somewhere clean, safe and fairly cheap for a couple of nights, and we booked the Radisson Red through Expedia. See the link in the description on this video below. As I've mentioned, we were really pleased with the hotel. We had plenty of room and it was a really fun hotel to stay in. Although it wasn't right in the centre, it was in a good area for some of the other sites of the city and pretty close to a metro station to help get us around. Although we did end up using Uber a bit more to save time. The hotel came to around £400 for 2 nights, bringing the total cost of flights, hotel and the event tickets to around £1,100, only slightly more than the cost of just 4 tickets alone to the Olympics, which is what we started with. Although it was a fly-in visit and we certainly didn't see everything in these cities, it was an exciting little trip that the 4 of us loved. And generally, other than perhaps the outward flight, it worked really well. We definitely look to do more of these weekend breaks in the future where we can. So that was our weekend in Brussels and Antwerp. We hope this was useful for your trip, and if you've got any questions or any other tips, please do let me know in the comments below. Please like this video and subscribe to our channel as it really does make a big difference. We've got loads more trips and videos coming this year in Europe, Canada and the USA, so make sure to follow along for those. Thank you all so much for watching.